Okay, shalom. Right. So I've just quickly put this together. It's unbelievable revelation and really wonderful things that we need to know now, so that bring unity between people for all humanity. It's called He's Clean, referring to the leper. And then we're going to be looking at that in context of the Torah, the Gospels and the Quran. Okay, some of these teachings that I have done in this lesson I already covered previously in this particular teaching. Aleph, the two-way mirror, the big Aleph, the little Aleph, the big serpent, the little serpent. And this is about how YHWH, to get from the spiritual realm into the physical realm, uses this phenomena called a serpent. That's how it presents itself. That's how the descent occurs from pure spirituality into this physicality through this matrix or structure called a serpent. There's three aspects to that. However, really it's the letter Aleph. It's all a coded message, but really it's the letter Aleph. It's really the Mashiach through which YHWH descends from pure spirituality down into physicality, but that's not completely fully revealed at this time, so we're stuck with this serpent that bites. Okay, and that explains a little bit of that concept. So at the end of the last lesson that I did, I pulled up this image, this Merkava Tesseract, and I'd been talking about like a 5D reality. According to Sepher Yetzirah, the book called Sepher Yetzirah, we are living in a 5D. There's a what's called 5D reality, and when you Google it, you get some kind of image like this. These are representative of some kind of 5D, five-dimensional cube, if you like. And then also, when it comes to uniting those three main, what are called three main books, but represent 5 dimensions together, it's a little bit trying to reveal the truth that's consistent in all those dimensions through those different testimonies that we have received or been communicated to, is a little bit like collapsing a 5D Sudoku puzzle. Okay, so when there's not many numbers filled in the gaps, there's what's called a lot of entropy, a lot of chaos. So, but once you start to fill in all the blanks on the Sudoku puzzle, you start to then have much more order, and then it makes it easy for solving the remaining blank places. So we're really at the very end of trying to solve a massive complex Sudoku puzzle that's created a lot of chaos for us, because there's been a lot of variables, and especially when there's a lack of communication, like between distinct peoples, because they've been exiled into totally different exiles, and there's been a lack of communication between those different peoples that's resulted in maybe a few false numbers being inserted onto the grid. And then it's not until everything comes together do we get, all right, so they've got that's what they've been doing, right, I see now, that helps us to solve our problems in our little cube over here. So we've got three main heads of the clipper that I talk about a lot. We've got the clipper of the Erev Rav, which the Torah has been descended into. The Torah of Moshe has descended into that. That's according to Vilna Gaon. Okay? And that happened when Moshe died. As soon as Moshe died, and he wasn't permitted to go with the Bnei Israel into Eretz Israel, the Erev Rav took domination over Judaism, and that has been the case for well over 3,000 years. Okay, so exactly the same thing happened with Yeshua, who represents Mashiach ben Yosef. A revelation came into the world. The light of Mashiach ben Yosef was revealed in the world. It was a revelation of the name of YHWH at the level of Keter. That was what is revealed. The Yechidah was revealed through the teachings of Yeshua, however they descended into Edomite exile. So, so there's people over here, the Jews trying to solve their little section of the puzzle, then there's the Christians up here trying to solve their little section of the puzzle, and then along came Islam, which really represents the aspect of Mashiach that we know as Mashiach ben Dawid, but this went into Ishmaelite exile. These are the three heads of the clipper that the sages speak about. It's all Kabbalistic. The three heads of the clipper, and the clipper means evil outer shell. So the light of Mashiach ben Dawid was revealed within Islam. Okay, this is the one stick. And this is much more universally and globally applicable. The Torah is very, very, the Torah of Moshe is the current version of the Torah of Moshe, what we've got now. It's predominantly adhered to by the Jewish people and like the Kohanim, the Levites. The book of Yeshua is the he says, I've come only for the lost house of Yosef. So this is the stick of Yosef. Moshe is a stick of Yehuda. And then you've got the one stick where these two come together. And this is what you find. And this is the one stick, the shepherd over all. David will be a shepherd over all. So you've got, within Islam, you've got a much more universal, global application for all people, really. It's contained within Islam. Okay, so all the nations are able to adhere to this because it's purposed for that. It's purposed to reach a more global audience. Okay, however, all three testimonies and witnesses are very important, and at one point they need to be united together. So you've got the Jewish people trying to solve their little part of the puzzle and collapse the entropy, the chaos over which they have been subjected to. And then you've got Christians who have been, with their testimony, the stick of Yosef, trying to collapse all the puzzles and all the chaos that they have been subject to, and all the harsh judgments, and do what the book that they have been given has instructed them to do, i.e. go and spread this gospel into the four corners of the world and live according to the words of Yeshua. And then you've got, in the other little corner, you've got the Muslims been doing their, adhering to what is written in the Quran and preparing the vessels of shalom. And at some point, the Jewish people and the Christian people that are really aspects of the name YHWH, because they represent Israel. The house of Judah and the house of Yosef is Israel. So they need to unite together to form the light, a united light, and then this will fit into the vessels that the Muslim people have been preparing, and this will impact the entire of humanity, by the way, when this happens. So we've all been in our little corners trying to do the things that our testimony has inspired us to do in different ways. So we've been all collapsing that entropy, that chaos in this world that YHWH has purposed us to resolve and eliminate, to reveal the underlying oneness that is hidden in the chaos. And this is what it's a little bit like collapsing the wave function, eliminating all the entropy to collapse the wave function to reveal the unity. Okay, and that's what we've tried to do. And it's like I said before, it's like a big Sudoku puzzle. So if you've got some people over here solving part of the puzzle and some people over here solving part of the puzzle, at one point they need to all get together to complete that task. Because what if, if it's not consistent within all of this, in every area. For example, you've got this box here, or this line here has got to be consistent to this box here, and then there's got to be consistencies going up there. This is just a 3D version of a Sudoku puzzle. We're talking about a 5D, so it's got to be consistent in the 5 dimensions, the 3 dimensions of time, which are represented by Moshe, the 3 dimensions of space represented by Moshe, the dimension of time, the 4th dimension represented by Yeshua, and then the 5th dimension, which is really represented by the Quran, okay, or the Muslims. But at some point they have got to, it's really Mashiach ben Dawid, we should really speak in terms of that. Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben Dawid, they represent the 5 dimensions and the 3 books, okay, that are connected to creation, or on which all of creation is based. So at some point we're all in our little corners solving the problems over which we've got administration, okay, but at some point all those need to be united to make sure that the truth that they have revealed is consistent with all the other dimensions, okay. So we need to check out what has been going on within the within the realm of Islam. It's got to unite with what has been going on within Christianity, and it's also got to unite with what is going on in Torah. It's primarily got to be completely, everything's got to be rooted back to the Torah that was given to Moshe. Everything, that is the ultimate root. So it's got to be all connected back to that, and then to the source that reveals the name YHWH. Okay, ultimately connecting back to the name YHWH. Okay, so no small task. So these are the 3 main books as is revealed in the Torah. Okay, so everything's got to be rooted back to the Torah. So what we see in the world around us has got to be evidenced in the Torah. Okay, so we've got to understand it from its root and from its source, and where we're getting these inspirations from. So 3 testimonies, 3 books, 3 main aspects to Moshiach: Tifereth, Yesod and Malkuth. So you've got Tifereth, which is the stone table, step tablets, the Lukoth; Yesod, which is the jar of manna; and Malkuth, which is represented by the staff of Aaron. And this is it going from the perspective of the book of Sepher Yetzirah. There are 3 books. The Sephiroth are the way God communicates to us. Okay, so these 3, the word Sephiroth, so these are the Sephiroth that are on the tree of life. So going from Keter to Malkuth, from the crown to the kingdom. And then you've obviously got the main the main attributes that we're talking about in terms of the Mashiach, the Tifereth, which means beauty; Yesod, which means foundation, and Tzaddik, the righteousness; and then also Malkuth, which means kingdom. And they're the 3 aspects of Moshe, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben Dawid. Okay, 3 books. So the Sephiroth really are connected to the word book. Okay, and this is the way YHWH communicates to us via these Sephiroth. These are the way that he emanates to us, or communicates to us, or makes himself known to us, that is in physical reality. Okay, and like I've said right at the very beginning, the way that he transitions from physicality, from pure spirituality into physicality, is via the serpent. That causes the descent. How we get back up from this up to spiritual reality is via Moshiach. That's the ascent. Okay, and like I say, it's really connected to the letter Aleph, the 3 aspects of the letter Aleph. So in the book of Sepher Yetzirah, there was 3 roots to this word Sephiroth. Okay, bearing in mind this is the way YHWH communicates to us, or he emanates into creation through the Sephiroth. These are his attributes. Okay, I'll stick to this, the way God communicates to us. It makes it easier, because we're talking about 3 books, and we're talking about 3 aspects of Mashiach, and we're talking about how that is being made manifest in this world at this time, the reality that we are living in. There is 3 distinct groups of people that represent those 3 aspects of Mashiach, that represents those 3 books. Okay, and there's problems with these forms of communication, because all these forms of communication are then descended into evil exterior husks called klippa, And then this is a problem, because that creates separation, and that creates conflict, and that creates war. And we need to get to a place where we're creating unity. We can only create unity when we have clear understanding of the Mashiach. The Mashiach is the force that creates unity. The serpent creates the disunity or separation. So 3 main words for Sephiroth. The first one is Sepher text, and it's connected to world and space, and it's the form of the letters, and it represents Moshe. It represents the head of the serpent, or what you could say the upper yud of the Aleph. The letter Aleph is split into yud, upper yud, vav, lower yud. So Moshe represents the head of the serpent, or the upper yud of the Aleph. And like I say, this is the way that YHWH descends from pure spirituality into physicality via the Aleph. Or when the Aleph is not fully revealed, or the perfection of the Aleph is not fully revealed, we've got a false Mashiach there. The Aleph represents the Mashiach. We've got a false Mashiach. The false Mashiach is a serpent. We take the serpent and transform it into the Aleph. We can't have one without the other. So text, Sepher. It also means Sephah, number, which is associated with this dimension of time, or year. It's referred to as year, world and year. That's the numerical value of the letters. This represents Mashiach ben Yosef. This is the body of the serpent, or the Vav of the letter Aleph. And then you've got Sepher, communication, telling, and this relates to the soul and to the spirit, and its pronunciation and name of letters. This refers to Mashiach ben David, and it also refers to the tail. It also refers to the lower yud of the Aleph. Okay. So the definition of the word Sephirah, the Hebrew designation for the divine emanations that form the basis of creation. The word for book, Sepher, has the same root as the word Sephirah, except that the former is masculine and the latter feminine. These 3 books are said to be text, number, and communication. The Hebrew word for text, that should say text, here is Sepher, which literally means book. Number is Sephah, from which the English word cipher is derived. There's a lot in. When we come to revealing the truth, Od Yosef Chai, Moshiach ben Yosef, we use gematria, is very important when it comes to that, and also ciphers. Last lesson I went through a very important cipher that took the word hasofek, the doubt, and ciphered it into leper. Okay, so we know that Mashiach ben Yosef is very much associated with the whole concept of leprosy, and that is part of what we are going to be talking about even in this lesson. So cipher is derived. Communication is sipo, which more literally is telling. So there's the 3 books, text, number, and telling, and they're connected to the stone tablets, the jar of manna, and even the fact that you get an omer full of manna, for example, and then you've got the counting of the omer. Things like that. It's all to do with counting. And then Sepher, communication, telling. I shall not die but live to declare the word of Hashem. Things like that. Okay? They represent quality, quantity, and communication, letters, numbers, and the manner in which they are used. They correspond to 3 divisions: universe, year, and soul. In modern times, these would be called space, time, and spirit. As we shall see, the Sepher Yetzirah speaks of a 5-dimensional continuum defined by the 10 Sephirot. The first 3 are the dimensions of space, the 4th dimension is time, the 5th dimension is the spiritual dimension. These 3 special dimensions comprise a single continuum. The 3 of them together constitute the first book. Time is the second book, while the spiritual hidden dimension is the third. Okay, so this is all taken from the book Sepher Yetzirah. And then I've gone through this many times. So a little bit like what I was saying. How does YHWH get from pure spirituality descend down into physicality? There's a chain of descent, and it's really represented. The coordinate of that would be a serpent, but like I say, it's actually the letter Aleph. It descends via the letter Aleph, but when we're in our fallen state, we don't perceive that. It's actually the Mashiach through which he descends from pure spirituality into physical reality. And even the Torah that we have got, it's in its pure spiritual state. It is, the Torah that we've got is made for us to understand it. So it speaks in terms that we can understand. In its pure spiritual form, it wouldn't resemble the Torah that we have down here that speaks in our own language. It's got a root that's far more powerful and spiritual. And that's why there's so much power involved when we're looking at the Hebrew words, reading the Torah, studying the Torah, doing the Torah, thinking, speaking and doing the Torah. Okay, because its spiritual root is so much more greater. It's the name YHWH ultimately. Okay, but like I say, we can't see that. We've got to have a representation of that within physicality. So that comes, that descent of that pure spirituality, it descends via the serpent and we ascend via the concept of Mashiach. But our concept of Mashiach is in a very fallen state. It's all connected to the letter Aleph. And like I've pointed out before, you've got to ask this question as well. Mashiach from snakes and ladders to the Aleph Gadol. Mashiach is called, or Moshe is called the Aleph Gadol. Yet in the Torah is represented by a small letter Aleph. The letter Aleph that is little on the word Vayikra, the opening word of the book of Leviticus. It's written tiny. It's written much smaller than a normal letter Aleph, and this represents Moshe in descent, i.e. when his perfection is not fully revealed. At the time of redemption, the perfection of the Moshiach will be revealed, and we will be all a part of that perfection, but we are in a process of rectifying a whole of creation, and we are rectifying the whole of the concept of Moshiach to reveal the perfection. Okay, or to make manifest that perfection. So in the meantime, we've got some truth regarding Mashiach and then some lies. So it's a bit of a mixture. Okay, and it creates duality. Because there's some truth and some falsehood. There's some good, there's some evil. Right, so I've gone through this image many times. So this is the upper Yod, which would be represented like this. And from snakes and ladders to the Aleph Gadol, do you see a serpent and a staff? So there's two things there, isn't there? There's the serpent and the staff. And this is like Metatronic consciousness, if you like, because Metatron can either be a serpent or a staff. Okay, it's the rod of Elohim that turns into a serpent or a staff. So do you see two things, or do you see beyond that to the absolute unity of the name YHWH? We should be able to comprehend the Aleph. But at this time where we are still being rectified, we comprehend the serpent and the staff. We comprehend the duality. So, this is all connected to why Yeshua had to be lifted up. He was the serpent on the staff. And we've got to see beyond those two aspects to the unity, the underlying unity. We've got to collapse solve all the chaos that we've been surrounded by, the entropy of the system into which we have been born, to reveal that underlying unity. And that goes back to that Sudoku puzzle. So we've been collapsing our part of the puzzle, whatever we've been born into, either Christianity, Judaism or Islam. We've been trying to solve that, and then the bigger picture is in order to unite everything together, we've got to take a step back and see what everybody else has been doing, and then from that bigger perspective, then we reveal more of the unity. And then there will be a bigger step back from that. Once Islam is united with Christianity and Judaism, then what of the other people in the world? So even once that occurs, once that unity occurs between the light of the name YHWH and the vessels of Shalom that have been prepared within Islam, then you need to take a step back, because there's still a few billion people that exist outside of that unity. So you need to take a bigger step back. And there's an even bigger unity to then be revealed. Well, how does that fit in then? Once they're unified, they would become what's equivalent to Tifereth then. And then you've got to find, well, where in the world then is the Yesod? You've got to maintain the Aleph, but at a bigger level, a more back level, until you've included the entire of creation and unified the entire of creation. So uniting Islam, Judaism and Christianity together is just one massive, massive step, but then there's even more to be able to unite all of humanity together. There's another big step back that you've got to take. So then the macrocosm becomes another microcosm, and then you've got to start working on an even bigger picture from there, because the ultimate goal is to bring unity for all creation, all humanity, and we've got to be all included and find a way for that unity to be recognised throughout all humanity. Okay, it's more than I know, but I can only speak up until the unity of at this time I can only speak about the unity of Judaism, Islam and Christianity, because that's what I'm able to perceive. But obviously you can't exclude the rest of humanity, because you've seen a pattern that includes all of humanity. It's just how does that then fit in? What does it look like when you take a step back? You've got to and not only that, we've got to unite every single human that ever was and that ever will be. And that is, so you've got to, once you've solved one part of that Sudoku puzzle, you're just going back, another bit that surrounds it, and then going further and further back until you've solved all the chaos and revealed the unity in the entire system that we have been given to reveal that unity in, past, present and future. Okay, because we've got to solve the problems. One of the dimensions is time, and time includes past, present and future. And the truth has got to be consistent throughout all of time, throughout all of space, and even through and consistent within the spiritual realm that we can't perceive, although we have got traces of it. Okay, this goes back, this concept now, what we're going to look at, all right, all guilty, Sanhedrin 98a. This is because when I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about today, the Gospels, the Torah, the Gospels and the Quran, we're going to be talking about in context of the leprosy that all humanity has been covered with, because we've committed Lashon Hara against the way that YHWH has chosen to reveal himself in this world through the concept of the Mashiach. But because we haven't been able to comprehend Mashiach clearly, all humanity has been speaking against the concept of Mashiach, and as a consequence has become leprous, because that's what happens. We've got evidence within the Torah that you speak against the Mashiach, you get leprosy. So we've got to bear in mind this concept, because with what I'm saying about we become clean by the fact that we completely and totally leprous. All humanity has defamed the name YHWH, misunderstood the purpose of creation, and misunderstood the concept of the Mashiach. Okay, so we're all guilty of this lack of knowledge, and then we're all guilty of the words that we've spoken as a result of that lack of knowledge. So this is going back to what the sages say, that redemption will come when we're either all righteous or all guilty. It's looking like we're all guilty, and so therefore redemption can come on a basis of the fact that all humanity is guilty of speaking against the Mashiach. Kings shall see and rise, princes shall prostrate themselves because of the Lord, who is faithful, and the Holy One of Israel, who has chosen you, indicating that redemption will come independent of repentance. And then this is also from Sanhedrin 98a. And Rabbi Yochanan says, the Son of David will come only in the generations that is entirely innocent, in which case they will be deserving of redemption, or in the generation that is entirely guilty, in which case there will be no alternative to redemption. He may come in a generation that is entirely innocent, as it is written, on your people also shall be all righteous, they shall inherit the land forever. That's Isaiah 60:21. He may come in a generation that is entirely guilty, as it is written, and he saw that there was no man, and was astonished that there was no intercessor. Therefore his arm brought salvation to him, and his righteousness it sustained him. Isaiah 59:16. And it is written, for my own sake I will do it, for how should it be profaned? And my glory I will not give to another. So first of all, let's go and have a look at this concept of Lashon Hara that gives us the leprosy. So there's three main aspects to the Lashon Hara as evidenced in the Torah. There's Miriam that speaks against Moshe. Moshe is the first revelation of the soul of Mashiach, and he's the level of Tiferet. He's the stick of Yehuda. He is the text, what's called the form, the three dimensions as mentioned in Sepher Yetzirah. And this is the Torah. The book is the Torah. The three books upon which creation is made. This is the primary one, the Torah. The people against the manna. The manna represents Mashiach ben Yosef. This is Yeshua, the highest revelation of the soul of Mashiach, Yesod. Okay, it's also connected to Keter. That's why it says the highest revelation. It's the Yechida, which is at the level of Keter. So this is the stick of Yosef, and this book that this represents is what in the Sepher Yetzirah is called the number, the Sapir, and this is the Gospels. The leaders and spies against the land. The land represents Mashiach ben David, Malkuth, the one stick, the Quran. Okay, and that is why the land, to all intents and purposes, is still subject to Islam. All the main holy sites, for example, the temple site, still subject to Islam. It's still within the Klippa. It's still within the Klippa of Islam. So you've got the cave of Machpelah and Yosef's tomb. It's all connected to Islamic control. Okay, and there's reasons why. There's very clear reasons why. Because really hidden within Islam is the last testimony that we would call a revelation of the Mashiach ben David. Okay, so there are reasons why YHWH has caused this to happen. We've got to look at the real situation that's before us and think about why this situation is before us. It's because the temple has got to be a temple for all nations. And within Judaism is not a religion that can be applied universally like Islam can be applied universally. The only way is if Judaism was to adopt the adopt the Quran and bring it within itself, which is what it should do. It is ultimately the source of the Quran is the Torah. The source of the Gospels is the Torah. But at this time, because we're in exile, there's a separation between that. Okay? There's a separation between the way YHWH has communicated to us. We need to bring unity towards that. We need to recognise this is the way that YHWH has been communicating via his Sephiroth in different ways to different people for different reasons, because they've got different purposes that they need to fulfill. They have got different aspects of the entropy within this system to collapse. They have got different aspects of the truth that they need to reveal, but at one time they've all got to be united as one. And so these are basically, when we're talking about the Torah, this Torah is in exile, the Gospels are in exile within Edom, the Quran is in exile. So I'm obviously not talking about the Torah in exile. I'm talking about the Torah that is redeemed once we are redeemed. I'm talking about the Gospels in their rectified state, in their redeemed state, and the Quran in their rectified, redeemed state. I'm not talking about the Quran and whilst it's still subject to the evil Ishmaelite influence, or the Torah whilst it's subject to the evil Erev Rav influence, or the Gospels while they're subject to Roman dominion, Edomite dominion. Lashon Hara, evil tongue, brings separation between the letter Vav and the letter He. This separation needs healing. So this is between heaven and earth, between Tiferet and Malkuth, between the name YHWH and his kingdom on earth. Okay. So as we can see, when we look at the three aspects to Lashon Hara, we can see that we're all guilty, because we're all guilty about speaking against Moshe to some degree. We're all guilty about speaking against the bread from heaven, the Yeshua. And we're all guilty about speaking against the land of Israel. I mean, the land of Israel is probably at this time takes the most slander, from every direction, and primarily because the fact that the Muslim people, Muslim people, have got some control over that land is the cause of most of the slander that we currently have, because we're living in times of such ignorance. Now, the land belongs to the children of Israel. That is an absolute definite fact. But even within Islam and even within the Palestinian people, there's a tremendous number that have got Israelite heritage. Okay, and all this has got to be revealed. And the Mashiach will reveal all this. And as of the children, as of the Christians, there's a lot of people in Christianity who are of the house of Yosef, and all this has got to be revealed. Okay, so I'm not saying that the land belongs to Muslims. The land belongs to the children. The land belongs to YHWH, but at this time, there's a reason. There's a definite reason why the Muslim people have got some dominion over that land. It's because hidden within Islam is the testimony of Moshiach ben Dawid, the one stick, and the whole base, the whole book, if you like, upon which humanity, the majority of the humanity, will be united, which is the teachings that are to be found in the Quran. Once they are divested of the evil outer husk, the evil Yishmaelite husk, it's a much more globally applicable religion, because you've got both law and deep, profound spirituality. With a Moshe, you've just got really basically it's legalistic. And with Christianity, it's basically spiritual. Everything's spiritualized. With Islam, you've got the two aspects coming together. So you've got elements of law, things that genuinely need to be obeyed, but then you've got also profound, deep spirituality within Islam. But the problem is, at this time, it's totally severed from its root, the Torah. So it's got to be united and brought together, and as also the Gospels, they've been completely separated from their root, their Hebrew root. So it's only once they are totally and utterly attached back to the Hebrew root of the Torah, and you've got that unity, can you then say that the Quran, for example, the teachings within the Quran are the most globally applicable teachings that we have. They are the Aaron's rod that brings peace for all humanity. Okay, Aaron represented peace. So at this time, it's called the religion of peace, and ultimately that will be fulfilled. Okay, but in the meantime, it presents a problem, because this truth, this peace, is exiled, and it's exiled into some of the darkest layers of evil. Okay, as is all of these books, and all of these concepts are exiled, and it's very difficult for us to bring unity when they're in that state of exile, and dangerous sometimes. So let's have a look at these books. So we've got the Torah, the Gospels, and the Quran. Okay, let's have a look at some of these numbers. So straight away, if we take the square ordinal of the Torah, the Gospels, and the Quran, 970, 1426, and 1019 comes to 3415, which is this verse here: for a long time my soul dwelt with those who hate peace. That's from Psalm 120, verse 6. This is all connected, however, to King David. Let's go and have a look. So this is Psalm 120, A song of ascents. In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me. The Lord saved my soul from false lips and from a deceitful tongue. You know, like Lashon Hara, or in this case it's Remiyah. What can he give you, and what can he add to you, you deceitful tongue? Sharpened arrows of a mighty man with coals of broom. Woe is to me, for I have sojourned in Meshech. I dwelt among the tents of Kedar. Okay, so he's telling you where he is. King David is telling you where he is. Where is it? I dwelt among the tents of Kedar. What are the tents of Kedar? Muhammad came from the tents of Kedar. Okay, that's where King David is. It's coded. It's all coded message. Muhammad was from the tribe of Kedar, and then I've talked about this in previous lessons. There's prophecy regarding Kedar within Isaiah. I'm not going to go into it now, but anyway, for a long time my soul dwelt with those who hate peace. So in the unrectified situation that we've got now, the whole concept of Mashiach ben David, the whole opportunity that we've got to unite whole of humanity together in peace is exiled. So my soul dwelt with those who hate peace. So you've got the opposite, haven't you? I mean, and it's horrific what the Muslim people and the Arab people have done to the Jewish people. I mean, there has been errors on both sides, but I mean, the absolute bloodlust for killing Jews in the land of Israel is there's no words to describe. It's horrific. Arabs teaching the children, you know, putting knives and, you know, suicide vests on the kids. It's a darkness like you can't imagine. It's a wickedness, you know. So you just want to smash it to smithereens. And anybody that would cling to that, it's not the teaching that was given. It was not the way YHWH communicated to the Muslim people through the Quran. It's all been corrupted because of the exile into which that has then descended, to the point where they can literally be, you know, they're sick. They're sick handing out sweets when they've murdered Jews, children and everything. They're sick, depraved. There's no way to describe it other than that. They should be rooted. They've got the Jews to thank for the Quran, you know, in one way, because it's rooted in the Torah. But also the Jews are subject to a very dark force as well. So once we have overcome these powerful forces of ego, there will be peace. There will be peace. I am at peace, but when I speak, they come to wage war. So we see that evidence of it, and this is the problem. When we've got these powerful testimonies, these powerful books, but they're exiled into such depths of darkness, then we've got a lot of conflict. You know, then we've got a lot of bloodshed in the name of religion. There should be unity, but there's not. There's separation because there's too much ego involved. Because the Jews think they're the supreme race, the Christians think they're the supreme race, the Muslims think they're the supreme race, and they're smashing each other on the heads to prove how right they are. You know, this is just ridiculous. This is what religion can do, and this is a state of immaturity. You know, and we've got to, this light was given to bring unity, and it's done the absolute opposite. It's created the serpent and not the Mashiach. And there lies the problem. So we're in a state of descent. You know, but ultimately we've got to take that serpent and transform it into the Mashiach. Right, let's go back. Right, so let's go quickly look at some of these numbers then. So if we do the Torah and the Gospels together, we come to 1,000. Just the Torah and the Gospels, the regular and ordinal added together. 1,675. Front and back you have formed me. Okay, so this is taken from Psalm 139:5. So this is a very, very powerful concept. I'm not going to go into it very deeply, but basically the whole term very good applies here. Because very good, when man was made, everything was good within creation until man was made on the 6th day, the 6,000th, which represents the 6,000 time period that we've got to rectify humanity, which we're getting very close to the end. But the sages say that the term very good means that we were formed with both inclinations, inclination to do evil and an inclination to do good. When we finally subject our evil inclination, our egotistical, selfish nature, and drag that over onto the realm of holy and good, then we will be in a state where we're very good, because these impulses that we've got for evil can be used as impulses for good. Okay? These are what are called our outer Esav, our outer nations. And this is at microcosmic level. Obviously there's a macrocosmic application to that as well. So I'm talking about in a microcosmic level. So we've all got an evil inclination. Now we can either use those inclinations, i.e. to marry, to procreate, to eat and stuff. We can either use them selfishly, indulgently, lustfully, greedily, or we can use them in a holy way. When we transform those impulses to serve ourselves into an impulse from an impulse to serve ourselves to an impulse to be utilised for the sake of the name of YHWH, then we have corrected our evil inclination to the side of good. And that's why man is called very good. The sages say the very part aspect relates to the evil inclination once it's subdued, and then the good relates to the good inclination that must dominate over the inclination. Okay, it's like the body dominating over the soul. It's Yaakov dominating over Esau. It's Israel dominating over the nations ultimately. But it's ultimately heaven dominating over earth. And that being the dominant reality. At this moment in exile, physicality is a dominant reality. Our bodies dominate. The nations dominate. Esav dominates. We're in Esav, Edomite exile. But we have been formed that way. Front and back, we have been formed. So just because we're evil or we've got an evil nature, it doesn't mean to say that we should just purely identify with that. We've got to see that as the opportunity that it is to transform that is evil and egotistical and brings separation and duality into something that ultimately reveals the absolute unity and perfection of the name YHWH. Why? Because he made us that way. Front and back, you have formed me. So the unity between Moshe and Mashiach ben Yosef, really that is the name, isn't it? The name revealed within the letter of the Torah, the name above the letter of the Torah. This was, if you like, the front aspect to the tribes of Israel that this was revealed to. And we entered into, the house of Yosef entered into a much deeper exile than the house of Yehuda, and we have become we entered into the Edomite exile, if you like, more predominantly. So we have become like the back. So YHWH has formed us front and back. We have been formed, and together we are one. Together we're very good. That's the way I look at it as well. So like, instead of this has a very personal application for me and a very useful meditation. I'm going to share it with you. Whenever I go for a mikveh, I always meditate on the fact, I always say to myself, Ani tov me'od anochi. Okay, and I'm really letting myself remember that, yeah, I fall down in this reality because I have got both a good inclination and a bad inclination. And sometimes the evil inclination dominates. It's not because I want it to. I want to just perfectly serve YHWH. I'm in a process of rectification. But I always tell myself I'm very good. Don't ever run from the evil. You've just got to take that and transform it into a way that is going to be utilised for the sake of the name YHWH to be revealed. Okay, and this is the backside of all of us, isn't it? It's that shadow side to our personality that we don't really want anybody else to see. It's enough for us to keep staring at it in day and night. So we've all got that backside. We've all got that, as Carl Jung said, our shadow self, that we're always in conflict with, aren't we? We all just want the happy, smiley face version of ourselves, the front front forward facing, the good inclination, the good within ourselves. We want to put that on display. We want to walk around like happy, shiny people. But we really got another side to us. We've all got that side to us that is our shadow self. And we can spend a long time in conflict with, and it literally can send you mad. You know, that conflict between good inclination and bad inclination within us can literally send you mental. It's a very real conflict. It can create what's called bipolar and all kinds of things like that. But once you subdue that side, and once you become at peace with that side, and once you see, oh, just wait a minute, this is all part of a very good, it's all part of me being made very good, because YHWH formed me that way for an ultimate purpose, to reveal his name, more so than would have happened if I'd have just been good. The rest of creation is good. Man, however, is very good. So there's a certain point where we've got to be at peace with that shadow side, that backside of ourselves. And we've got to utilise that backside of ourselves. And remember, this is what forms the whole of us. And really, the Torah and the Gospel should bring us to that place where we totally and utterly are aware of the truth that we are very good. And that includes that shadow side to all of us, that back side to all of us. It's all a part of one glorious creation that is called man. Okay? There's loads of other things. That, by the way, is the 2,790 is 5 times 558. Let me just get my calculator, because I just need to do a quick calculation. Where is my calculator gone now? Yeah, the 558 is 182 Yaakov, which represents our good inclination, plus 376, which is Esav, that represents our evil inclination. And Esav is also exactly the same gematria for Shalom. So we've got to understand there's a reason why we've got that shadow side. We've got to transform that to be into Shalom. Like our outer 70 nations have got to be of Shalom with Israel, which represents our soul. This can happen at the personal level, the microcosmic level, and the macrocosmic level. Okay, so that number itself is connected to just everything that I've just spoke about. It's Yaakov united with Esav. It's the front with the back. It's the good and the evil. Okay, both completely united together with a common goal of serving YHWH and nothing else beside him. And you shall make 2 golden cherubim. So that comes to 1,675. There's loads of things I could say about that, but that's basically the unity, isn't it? That's also the unity, the cherubim facing one another, and that's also connected to the books. The cherubim are above the Ark of Testimony, that contain the stone tablets and have next to it the jar of manna and Aaron's rod. So these are the 2 cherubim that hover above. There's lots of things I could say, but I'm not going to go into that just now. But we can see that there's a connection, okay, with everything that I've said. The book should bring us to a place. They're a form of YHWH giving us instruction to bring us to that place where we are able to create peace between body and soul. Okay, it's as simple as that. And Jesus grew up, he increased in wisdom and in stature and in favour. So this is really Yeshua being greater than Solomon. Okay, and as we can see, it's connected up to the regular of the Torah, the Gospels and the Quran. Added together come to 1,897, which is 7 times 271. So this is 10 times 271. Okay. The teachings of Yeshua really bring unity between all these. It's the secret hidden level of the Torah. It's revealed within the Gospels, but obviously this is going into descent. And even in the Quran, the true magnitude of Yeshua and the true importance of Yeshua, Jesus, has not thoroughly been yet revealed, although it's already in there, because Yeshua is mentioned in the Quran many, many more times than Muhammad. I can't quite remember the numbers, but I think Muhammad mentioned 4 times and Yeshua maybe 25 or something like that. There's a big difference. And also within the Quran, Yeshua is called the Word of God. So this is a very, very powerful statement to be made within the actual Quran, because of the way that the Muslims view the Word of God and what that might mean. So I've come across that before. I am no expert in the Quran at all. I've never read it. I've only read parts of it very briefly. I've had much more involvement with the Muslim people because I worked as a teacher in Muslim schools, very predominantly Muslim schools. I did my maths training in 2 Muslim schools. That's just the way that I got allocated my placements, both within, one was a Muslim Jewish secondary school, and one was a, Muslim girls secondary school in Bradford, which is a massive community, and another one was in a very predominant a Muslim school within another one within Bradford. Okay, so I've had, and plus I worked for a man. It was a Muslim man doing tutoring. He had a Kip McGrath centre, so I was a Kip McGrath tutor for quite a number of years. And most of the kids that I taught there were Muslim, and I helped them to get into the grammar schools and things like that. That was the reason why they took up tuition. So I have not had much involvement with Islam as a religion, but I have a lot of involvement with the Muslim community. Okay, so I'm very blessed that I have, because I learned to lose some of the scales that I'd got on my eyes from being a Christian regarding Islam and Muslims. You know, the ego that we inherit lies. We inherit lies, and we've got to divest of those lies. And, you know, I was very pleased that I was able to divest of some of the lies and some of the, you know, the ego boosting consequences of being a part of a religion that is exiled into Roman dominion. You know, this has some influence that you've got to scrub yourself clean from. However, there's this wisdom that Yeshua brought into the world is a very high wisdom, you know, and this has got to be this is the one of the powers that we've got to unite all of humanity together through the words of Yeshua, really, and through the whole concept of the Mashiach ben Yosef, which is the Yechidah, and the Yechidah is the power that unites all humanity as one. So there's a lot of things that are connected to the fact that, and this statement is really telling you that Yeshua is greater in wisdom than Solomon. It's connected to that whole concept that his wisdom is even greater than Solomon's wisdom. And then this is it, look, how it's connected. This is why the centre of everything has got to be the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, just as it's the centre of the Aleph. We've really got to reveal this truth, because it's a secret dimension of the Torah, and everything gets rooted back to the Torah. And when the secret in a dimension of the Torah is thoroughly revealed, then that's going to bring a lot of unity between Muslims, Christians and Jews. Okay, but it's this truth. This is the truth that is missing at the moment. And Yosef said to his brothers, I am Yosef, is my father still alive? 271. So we can see that whole concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, and he really is a power that unites all of us together. Beware, making many books has no end, 271. So this has absolutely totally been fulfilled within these 3 religions, because you've got these 3 books, these should be enough. But instead, what you've got is within Judaism, you've got libraries and libraries and libraries of endless books. You couldn't get through all the books. Okay. And do they bring unity? They bring some kind of the really often a lot of them are just fueling that ego and that separation. We need to get to a stage where we are uniting, and that will be done through the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. So beware making many books has no end. So endless books in Judaism, endless books within Christianity, and endless amounts of books and commentaries within Islam. We really need to unite the communication that was given to us via YHWH, and that will be united, I would suggest, through the concept of Yosef, Mashiach ben Yosef. And we need to stop making books and start uniting the ones that we've already got together. To reveal YHWH in unity rather than to continually reveal the separation, like these books over here are Jewish books, these books are Christian books, these books are books for Islam. We've got to just look at the book, and we've got to look at ways to unite, not divide. Mentioned this in last lesson. Elef Kesef. This was the amount of money paid to Abraham by Abimelech because he had taken Sarah away from Abraham, and Abraham was compensated with 1,000 pieces of silver. It's all connected to the concept of Mashiach, because Elef 1,000 is the gematria of Mashiach ben Dawid, which is 434 plus Mashiach ben Yosef 566. We'll talk about that all of the time. And really, Yosef needs redeeming. He has been sold, if you like, by Yehuda into Edom or into exile, and needs purchasing back. And so there is this concept of Pidyon Nefesh or Pidyon Haben, redemption of the firstborn son, redemption of the soul. This needs to occur in order to properly bring him back into his Hebraic context and to stop rejecting him as a false Mashiach. He is not, he's Hebrew, and he belongs within the Torah, and all his teachings belong within the Torah. So again, it's related to the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. Male and female, he created them and he blessed them. So 205 is the exact same of the adding them all up. And this is the concept, isn't it? The Torah and the Gospels represent the name of YHWH, the name revealed within the Torah, the name revealed above the Torah, that need to unite the stick of Yosef with the stick of Yehuda. The Quran represents the vessel, which is the woman, the vessels of Shalom, the nations that are Esav, creating the vessels of Shalom that fill with that unified light, okay, to reveal the Aleph, that there's only YHWH and nothing else beside him. Okay, so male and female, he created them and he blessed them. So Zachor un keva or un wenukva bera'om y varech or thom. Okay, so male and female, he created them. So the male aspect, the Zachor, is the Torah and the Gospels. The female aspect is represented by the Quran. Okay. And also these numbers here, 41 times 37, 37 is the gematria of Yeshu, and 41 is the gematria of the ordinal gematria of Yeshu, and the ordinal of Kised, the way David's throne. Okay. And there's all kinds of things that you could read into that. And cleanses. So this is one of the 13 attributes, the final 13 attribute. So we are going through a cleansing process in order to reveal that oneness. And it's also linked to the concept of the resurrection of the dead. Okay. As long as we've got humanity separated by all these, we're in a state of death. Because we are not attached to heaven. I talked about this last lesson. There's two states to Yesod, two states to Yeshua. There's two states to the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. It represents the male aspect, the male anatomy. So there's two states that the male anatomy can be in, alive and dead. Okay. When Yaakov, which represents Tifereth, is told Joseph is dead, is shown the torn garments, the multicoloured coat, and he's covered in blood, and he's believing Moshe's dead, then that's the connection between heaven and earth is then disrupted, isn't it? Because the connection between heaven and earth goes via Yesod, which is Joseph. So then then Tiferet is very much diminished, and that shows you in the Torah why Yaakov struggled and he was in a state of mourning. And then when he was told the truth, Yosef Chai, he came alive again. I talked about this last time. Whilst the truth is not revealed, or Yosef Chai, we attach to heaven via Gevuroth, and this really cleanses us. But Gevuroth is also, there's an aspect to that contains harsh punishments and darkness and death. Okay, so we need to not be attached to heaven, the name YHWH via Gevuroth. We need to get out the wisdom that's trapped in there, that's hidden in there, the wisdom Od Yosef Chai, Yosef is still alive, and then with that we then arouse Yesod, and Yesod is then in an aroused state, and then we connect to heaven, Tiferet, via we're leaning towards the right hand of divinity then. So we're leaning towards Chesed, the Sephirah of Chesed, as opposed to the Sephirah of Gevurah. Okay? And the Sephirah of Gevurah is connected to gold, and the Sephirah of Chesed is connected to silver. And there we've got that connection somewhere, haven't we? Or we have that Elef Kesef. This is also connected to the realm of Chesed. I don't think I've quite described myself, but what I mean is this and cleanses is connected to the concept of the resurrection of the dead. The 13 attributes of faith are connected to the 13 attributes of faith are connected to the 13 attributes of mercy. So this is the 13th attribute of mercy, and it's connected to the 13th attribute of faith, or 13th principle of faith, which is resurrection of the dead. So we need to go from a state where Yosef is dead to Yosef is alive. And basically it's going from a state where we are connected to Gevurah, earth is connected to Gevurah, whilst Yesod is in a state of death, and we're taking all the harsh punishments as a consequence. We're really subject to the left side of divinity. We need to push to get to the right hand side of divinity by revealing the truth. I am Yosef, is my father still alive? Okay, or Od Yosef Chai. Right, so we've got to do that, and that's part of the resurrection of the dead. But it's also connected to and cleanses, and this whole experience of exile cleanses our soul and it humbles us. And we should be humble to a degree where then we can unite with other humble people. Okay, so there's all sorts of connection. So the ultimate purposes of these going into exile is to cleanse us, so that we can be like resurrected from the dead, going from Yosef being in a state where he's dead to Yosef being in a state where he's alive. And I talked about in last lesson crossing the Sambatian River, and this all been connected to Mashiach ben Dawid. Well, I had an inspiration yesterday. Basically, that Sambatian River, and I'm saying you've got to cross over the river, and it's a very difficult river to cross over. The concept of Metatron is called the river. Okay, he's the river that came out of Eden, that split into 4 heads, and these represent the 4 Torah interpretations, but also 4 exiles. And the last one is the exile that we're in now, the river Prat, which is the river Euphrates, that symbolises Edomite exile. Okay, so the Sambatian River is somehow connected to these forces of exile. That's what I'm trying to put forward. And really, if you think about the Sambatian River, the river that comes out of Edom, which represents Chochmah, and flows into Bina, which represents Eden, the Garden of Eden, sorry. This is the river that flows from Chochmah to Bina. We've got to somehow get over that. And I was saying that there's a 3-chord ply that enables you to get over that river. you've got to cross over this impossible river that is impossible to cross, according to the sages, this Sambatyon River. This is the lost tribes that have got to get over the river. They've got to be able to leave their exiled states behind completely and become Hebrews that are truth seekers. Okay, so whilst we're in exile, we're attached to YHWH via Sephiroth, via all our suffering, and we're seeing him through the cracks, if you like, because it's very difficult to perceive YHWH in truth whilst you are suffering in exile. Okay, but we need to do that in order to get the truth out that Yosef is still alive, because that truth is actually hidden in that place of suffering, a Gevurah. But then what we've got to do, another way of saying crossing the Sambatyon River is saying to going from that place of attachment to Gevurah and all the experience of the sufferings of exile, to let go of that and trying to get over to the other side of the river, which is to attach to the Sephirah of Chesed. Okay, the other side of the river is the Sephirah of Chesed. And that's nearly impossible for us to let go of the forces of exile, that state of Gevurah that we're all in, because we are subject to the lies of the religion that we've inherited. It is very, very difficult to let go of everything that needs to be let go of to get over that river. And like I say, we need the three-ply cord. Well, what is the three-ply cord? The three-ply cord is Yitzchak, Yaakov and Avraham, and they're your Sephiroth of Gevurah, Tifereth and Chesed. And what we've got to do is basically draw ourselves over that rope from Yitzchak. That's one. That Yitzchak is at one end side of the river, Abraham is at the other side of the river, and we've got to swing ourselves right over to the other side of the river, so that we are, it's still the central order, it's still always going to be Tifereth, Yesod and Malkuth, but it's when Tefereth is in a state where you know the truth, Od Yosef Chai, so it's alive and it invigorates Tefereth, and that enables that abundance to flow rather than the restriction, and it allows for the revelation of the name YHWH as opposed to Gevurah, which represents the concealment of his name, like peeping through the cracks of exile, just getting the scraps thrown off the table, because that force, Yesod, which is the connection between heaven and earth, is in such a diminished state because he's in a state of death. So it's all connected to the resurrection of the dead, and it's a cleansing process. This experience of exile should cleanse us, but it should also push us out of it. We should want to, we want to be cleansed. We want our souls to be cleansed, but we don't want to suffer endlessly. We don't want our religion we don't want to worship the God of suffering. We don't want to worship the God of pain and misery. We've got to want to be repulsed by exile to a state that we don't want to no longer identify with it. Sometimes it's very difficult to let go of that because it's made such an impression of us, and it's the only thing we know. It's the only thing we can relate to. Suffering, it's all we seem to know, and letting go of that, to cling to, letting go of our own suffering, letting go of our own pain, letting go of who we are and who we think we are in that context is very difficult, because it's made such a big impression on who we think we are. But it's a perspective of ourselves, and we need to let go of that to get to the other side, to see ourselves through the Sephirah of Chesed, to feel ourselves worthy to receive that kindness from above, and to feel, to desire it, to know that it exists, to know that it's real, and it's very difficult. And the forces of exile that want to drag you back into looking at life through that particular lens and seeing, like almost, it's seeing YHWH in such a restricted way, just through our suffering and just through our torment and just through, our shadow self, if you like. We've got to get to that side where we know that this is a part of who we are, but that's not what's before us, that's what's behind us. It's in the right order. This is what should be behind us, not in front of us. What should be in front of us is the name YHWH as revealed through the Sephirah of Chesed. We've got to transform ourselves to get into that right order, to not have just our suffering and our pain and anguish before us and be speaking to God through all that. Please do this. Why has this been? We've got to get that behind us to realise that there's only YHWH who's only been doing good in our lives. And let go of the belief that that is all we are. And it's very difficult. It's a very difficult transition, and we need to continually be aware of that and continue be looking to release ourselves from our own impression that this suffering has given us in terms of who we think we are in the context of suffering. Okay, we've got to see who we are in the context of Hashem's YHWH's kindness, his chesed. And sometimes we've just simply got to let go psychologically, and sometimes we've got to go through an actual healing process. Our body is so traumatized that it actually needs help to let go. We're talking about physiological and not just psychological, but physiological impressions that have made certain pathways, the way that our body releases stress hormones because of the trauma and the horror that we've been experienced to, and also all the generational stuff that we've inherited. The history of humanity, this burden that we've got to carry. If we can't release ourselves, or we can't see the good that YHWH has been doing during this whole 6,000 years, we're going to be seeing all the horrors, and this is what's going to be for us. That needs to be behind us. It's got to have its right place. That's got to be behind, and what's got to be in front of us is the name YHWH as revealed through the Sephirah of Chesed. Okay, so it's a process. Yes, we have got to have our souls cleansed, but then there comes a time where we've got to let go of this suffering. We get the wisdom of Joseph Chai, and we've got to make that transition then from the left-hand side of divinity to the right-hand side of divinity. We've got to get things in the right order. Okay? Esoteric filled. So this is what stands in the way, isn't it? But this is a defective spelling of Esav. This is Esav whilst he's in exile, because he's missing the letter Vav, he's missing the truth. So the inner Esav, if you like, in exile dominates over our soul, but it's not in a good way. But we're so accustomed to that domination of our fears and our our experience and of life in this reality, it does tend to dominate. We've got to subdue it somehow. And I talked even about the use of psychedelics. I'm not talking about taking massive psychedelic trips. I'm talking about medicinal levels, micro level doses of psychedelics can sometimes help unlock some of those deeply ingrained psychological pathways that have been formed as a consequence of the experience that we've experienced in this horrific exile, where rivers of blood have been spilled, endless amounts of suffering, death, torment, disease. We need to release ourselves from that, the domination of that in our lives, so that the kindness, the chesed dominates instead. And we need to go through a healing process as well in order for that to happen. You need to invest in the healing of your body so that it is not dominating over your soul. And this can be done via plants. It can be done via, there's all kinds of things, wild swimming, go in and get the psychological help that people need in order to calm down, dealing with the trauma in a professional way, not just using religion as a sticky bandage, it will not work. You'll just form a gangrenous wound under. If you can't put a Jesus bandage over everything. You can't put a Torah bandage over, and you can't put a Quran bandage on your problems. You've got to deal with the problems that you have inherited in a realistic way. Our Father in heaven needs us to be able to do that. We need to be grown up and mature. We need to recognise, I have a problem. I have a problem. I have an emotional problem. I have a psychological problem. I've got a shadow I can't deal with. I need to get help. I've got a shadow I can't get free of. I need to get help to subdue this power that it's got in my life until that good within me takes domination. Gets me over that river, gets me attached to the name YHWH, gets me focused on the good in this world instead of all the evil. Okay, so we have got a work to do. It's not easy. It really is not easy. Right, so this is just really to point out how, if we go back, very, very important number here for the Quran. This is why this is... the Quran to all extents, I can't even say it now. The Quran is like the one stick that's much more globally applicable. Okay, it's much more globally applicable to all peoples. I can't say whether it's applicable to the House of Israel because it's very clear from my understanding that the House of Israel has got to be... they are guardians of the name of YHWH, whereas within Islam, there's no name of the YHWH mentioned. It's purely the vessels of Shalom, okay? But the light of the name YHWH has got to fit within the vessels. So I'm not... when I'm talking about globally applicable, obviously we've got to be aware of everything that YHWH is doing in this world, including forming the vessels. You know, it is him that's doing that, even though the name is not revealed within the Quran. It's for Torah, it's for the house of Yehuda and the house of Yosef to unite with the name that's revealed in the Torah and the Gospels, and that to fill up the vessels of Shalom that are created through the teachings of the Quran. Okay, that's the way that I look at it. But look at this number here. We've got 427. This is how I'm going to link it up now to He is Clean, what we looked at in last lesson. It's so significant. It's unbelievable. Okay, so I went through this in the last lesson that I did, but I've made some major significant changes. So we've got this statement. I actually ended up analysing this because I'm analysing the whole concept of psychedelics and strong drink because it's linked back to Nadav and Abihu, and the term for strong drink is Sechar or Shechar. And so anyway, we're just having a look at it, and I got up to this particular verse where you've got it in terms of referring to the hired servant. So it can mean hire or reward or strong drink. Basically, that's why I've got this up here. However, when I was looking at this, because I wanted to understand, you know, the whole concept of hastening redemption and this whole history that we have had within humanity of the use of psychedelics, often in order to get us to experience very elevated states of consciousness, and there's a lot of warnings within the Torah not to do that. Okay, and then obviously you've got within Islam a prohibition against drinking strong drink. However, there's a massive amounts of drug use. I found that when we were working in the Muslim community, massive amounts of drugs and psychedelics and stuff like that. So that's all legitimate, but I think they bend the rules a little bit. But so there's all kinds of things. There's a massive culture within Islam, basically, of the use of drugs, because obviously alcohol is prohibited. But the word sakhar can mean any mind-altering substance, as far as I'm aware. So there's a great danger within the Torah and great warning, and I was putting some teachings together. However, I've used what I was doing for that particular analysis. I've not yet put the teachings together. It's really interesting. It really blows my mind. It's all related to the art and to the different the Gnosticism and things like that, and back to Egyptology and all kinds of wonderful things, and the animist religions of the world. There's a big connection with the use of psychedelics and how they can actually be used effectively, like what I've said, to release people from that traumatic that experience of trauma, to reprogram our brains. But it's all got to be done with the right intentions. You certainly can't repair the damage that this exile has caused by by taking drugs for the wrong reasons, for hits and trips or whatever you call them. Anyway, let's get on with this, because these are all related to the concept of the Quran. For twice as much as a hired servant filled. So this is really, it's a code name really for the 6 years that we are in this exile, the 6,000 year period where humanity is rectifying itself in order to get back to the elevated states of consciousness from which we have fallen. Okay, so there's loads of coded messages in it. I'm not going through it now, but this is this statement: for twice as much as a hired servant filled, which contains ki mishne sachar sachir avdecha avadcha. Okay, so your servant basically, and so this is it filled ki mishne twice the hire for a hired servant, but it doesn't include the word servant in this. It's twice as much as the hired. It goes up to sachar sachir. Okay. It comes to 2,632 regular, 427 ordinal, which comes to 3,059, which is 7 times 437. Both these numbers are very important when it comes to leprosy and what else we're going to look at today. So I've re-gone over this. So the Quran, it comes to 427. So we can see it's connected to this concept. However, cream and honey he shall eat. This is talking about the Mashiach. Cream and honey he shall eat when he knows how to reject evil and choose good. 427. A very, very important messianic prophecy. So we can see that that's related. Faith, Emunah, we're in this process to rectify our faith. So the square ordinal of faith is 427, exactly the same as the Quran. And also, I won't go through that now. Their name, their name was called Adam. He made them, created male and female, and their name is Adam, Genesis 5:2. So 423, we're talking about the unity between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And then we've got this. These are the 3 dimensions that we talked about. Moshe, Metatron, the matrix that conceals the truth hidden in space. 6 days, 6 days of creation. 3 dimensions of space. Then we've got Yesod, which is Yeshua. Metatron, this is the 3 books. Metatron, matrix that conceals the hidden truth. It's the Leviathan that conceals... No, the Metatron conceals the truth regarding Mashiach. That's the 7th day. 4th dimension of time. And then Malkuth, which we're talking about, it has got, if you add up the square ordinal and the regular and the ordinal, it comes to 1,514, which is 2 times 757, and 757 is Yaakov rectified, the square ordinal of Yaakov rectified, and this is about David. And it's concealed by the concept of Leviathan. However, if we add all these up, 1,658, the square ordinal, plus the square ordinal here, plus which ones am I adding up? The square ordinal here, and the square ordinal of Malkuth, it comes to 2,989, which is 7 times 427. So this is the entire concept together, isn't it? The name YHWH, the firmament, and the kingdom below, and it's all back connected to the Quran and all these messianic terms. Then you've got this, Yosef has surely been turned up. So we know that that's connected to this whole concept of Yosef being hidden in a state where he's traf Yosef. Okay, Tiferet perceives him as being surely turned up, surely torn to pieces, and that's why we're in this situation like hired servants. We are serving in order to rectify humanity, and then we will be rewarded for that service, okay, for the work that we've done to reveal or rectify creation. We will be rewarded for it, okay, and it's all connected. So whilst Joseph is in this state, we're attached to the Gevurah, and we're suffering and experiencing life like slaves almost. And this is why Metatron is called the slave who rules instead of the king. He rules over us until we reveal the truth, Od Yosef Chai. And then instead of the slave that rules and treats us like slaves, we've got the king over kings of kings, and the king over the kings of kings is YHWH, who is ruling over the king of the kings, which will ultimately be Mashiach ben Dawid. And we are like children of the king. We're not slaves of a slave master. We lose that slave mentality and we become children of the king mentality. Okay? That's when we're attached to chesed. He is clean. Okay, so this is the leper, isn't it? This is Mashiach whilst he's in exile suffering with us. Okay, completing this task up here of rectifying the whole of creation. And then light is also connected to that. Why? Because we're trying to get the light out of Gevurah. The light, what light? Od Yosef Chai, that really reveals the ultimate light in Od Milvador, the name of YHWH, where there's nothing else beside him. Ani Shalom, I am for peace. We've already looked at Psalm 127. We've already looked at the whole of Psalm 120. It comes to 437, so we can see that connection to all this back up here. Yosef has surely been torn. This is it filled out. Okay. It comes to 2,253 plus 209, which is 2,562, 6 times 427. So related back to the Quran. This is why the truth regarding Yosef is got to be revealed in the Quran, because it's hidden in there. All the fact that I talked about already, the name Yeshua mentioned many more times than Muhammad. Yeshua has got to Yeshu, or I think it's got Isa within the Quran. It's all got to come to the front, the purpose and everything, because he's the force that unites us all together as one. Okay, and like I say, he's like Metatron is in his place until he's fully revealed in truth. Okay. And then we've got the tree for the intellect. So when Eve was looking at the tree of knowledge of good and evil, she said that she noticed it was good for the intellect. I've done a whole teaching on this called the mother of all trees. I suggest if you're interested in exploring this concept of the tree for the intellect more, you need to go look at that video. However, we can see that the filling out of Ha'etz Le Haskil comes to 874, which is 2 times 427. So we've got a link to this aspect as well. We're trying to transform that tree of the knowledge of good and evil into something that is good for the intellect. It's part of the redemption. So we can see that that is part of our work as well. And it's all back connected to the things that we've already spoken about. And then we've got this, and this is the teaching which Moshe set before the children of Israel. So 2,989 is exactly the same as these 3 here. The 3 books of Moshe, Yeshua and the Quran. Okay, exactly the same. And as we can see, it's 7 times 427. So there's something within the Quran that once it's removed from its exile, within Ishmaelite exile, there's something, like I say, that's very globally applicable to that, that really is a revelation of the entire teaching of Moshe. Okay, contained within it is the Torah. So I don't know how it will play out, because like I say, there are things that I'm not yet fully aware of. But this word here, 363, is the gematria of Ha-Moshiach as well. So with the Quran, it's an aspect of the Mashiach. Contained within that is a revelation of the Mashiach that we need in order to be redeemed from exile. It's worthy of a lot more investigation, but like I say, that's just me touching the surface of it to give a picture from a perspective from a little bit further back than what we usually used to when we're exiled into our own religions and we can't see what other people are doing. And we've got to use this time now, as we're getting closer and closer to final redemption, we've got to stand further and further back from ourselves to look at much bigger perspectives. Okay, and then this finally we'll be looking at this whole concept of the truth that sprouts from the earth. This is what I missed off the last lesson, and seeing how it's connected. So you've got this whole concept, and then the Kohen shall look at it, and behold, the Zara has covered all his flesh, he shall pronounce a person with a legion clean of it all. So basically, like going back to what we were originally saying, because we've spoken about the concept of Mashiach and being ignorant, we've all now got covered in leprosy. However, there's some powerful revelation in that. It allows us to connect to the truth that does sprout from the earth. So truth will sprout from the earth and righteousness will look down from heaven. So emet, truth, is related to the land, me'eretz. So this is 456, which we can see 10 times that equals this whole verse. So it's connected to that. The letter Ayin that's missing off Mashiach ben Yosef's name, Yeshu, instead of Yeshua. If we add up the 70 for the regular value of the letter Ayin, 130 for the first filling of the letter Ayin, and 256 for the second filling of the letter Ayin, it comes to 456. We need this. This is the truth that reveals the truth, Od Yosef Chai. The letter Ayin is missing. So Yesod is in a state of death as a result, in exile. And he's got to get that letter Ayin put back, so that he is in a state of in a state that's alive. But like I say, we've all spoke Lashon Hara against the various concepts of Mashiach. But there's purpose in that. He has surely been torn to pieces. So Ach Trof Traf, 703, that's connected to that. That's again connected to Yosef. And we've got here, the one went away from me and I said, he has surely been torn to pieces and I've not seen him since. So this is Yaakov talking to Pharaoh, I think. This is the narrative book, or counting of the generations of man, Zeh Sepher. We've been looking at 3 books, haven't we? The root of the word Sephirah, the way that YHWH communicates to us. So the way that YHWH has communicated to us is through this whole concept of Mashiach ben Yosef suffering with us in exile, with his name erased, covered in Tzaharath. Okay. So that comes to a misbagadol of 1,797, which is 3 times 599. And then that's also the equivalent of the first filling out of Esav. We are correcting Esav. Okay, and it's getting all done in a very hidden, concealed way. Fig tree, so Tahaneh, fig. This is, according to the Talmud, one of the possibilities for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, 456. We can see that that's connected up to Yeshua, the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. Miriam the prophetess, so she was the one that spoke Lashon Hara. You've got the 363 again, which is HaTorah, and then 93 is also the it's the Mispar Gadol of Mashiach ben David, when David is spelled just Daleth, Vav Daleth. Okay, it's the Misbagdal Ordinal, so of Mashiach ben Dawid. Come across that number quite a lot. It's also, I think it's Melech Israel or something like that. Oh no, Melech Mashiach has got an ordinal of 93, or Melech HaMashiach. I can't quite remember which it is, but anyway, Miriam the prophetess 456. She is the letter He. She represents the letter He that needs rectifying. Okay, she also represents the kingdom of David to a certain degree, because David is represented by Malkuth, which is feminine divine, the vessel. And she's the one that spoke against Moshe. So this is connected again to the concept of leprosy. But like I say, the letter He, because we've all committed it, we're all guilty, we're all covered in leprosy. So Miriam represents the entire of the Knesset Israel, if you like. 456 related back to all this. The Meshachim who lament in Netzach and Hod and stand in the gates of the rebuilt Jerusalem. So this is a very coded message that we find in the Talmud regarding the Meshachim, which means the messiahs who lament in Netzach and Hod. So obviously there's some connection here to the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, and then obviously some connection to Moshe as well, because you've got the 456, and this whole it's very predominantly connected to the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, as we can see. And then we've got Bathia, daughter of Yah, and she was originally the serpent goddess. So her name originally, I did a lesson on this not so long back. She was really the serpent goddess in Egypt, and she was the one who became the mother of Moshe, the surrogate mother of Moshe. But really concealed within that serpent goddess was Batia, the daughter of Yah, and that gives us some indication of what we've got to accomplish. We've got to take this experience of life, like living through serpent eyes, the serpent reality. We've got to transform that into a revelation of the name of YHWH, to reveal that we are serpents, and we don't need to behave like serpents in the serpent nest. We are children of the King. Okay, we are Bat Yah, daughters of Yah, daughters of the King, sons of the King. We've got to reveal that within us. She was the snake goddess. She was Pharaoh's daughter, yet she ultimately revealed within herself that she was the daughter of the King, YHWH. Okay, so we've got to reach that place. Plus 39 is the ordinal of Moshe as well. And then we've got this: I will grant peace in the land, and you will lie down, and no one will frighten you. I will remove wild beasts from the land, and no arm will pass through your land. So this is a promise that's got to yet be fulfilled. This is all them exilic forces that dominate in the land of Israel at this time. You know, through predominantly all these lies are peddled. Usually there's a massive force that's coming from within Islam, isn't there? You know, the Palestinians and the things like that. I know things are not good for the Palestinian people in the land at this time, but the root of their problem is not necessarily the Jewish people. They're their own problem. So we've got to work on that to reveal those vessels of shalom that they have worked so hard to create. And we've got to get to that place where no one to frighten you. You know, all the wild beasts, all these savage, brutal murderers, that's all that they are. They are not Muslims. They're murderers. They don't represent Islam at all. They're just bloodthirsty, evil outer shell that needs to be dealt with, you know, and eliminated. This is like a spirit of Amalek. It needs to be completely and totally and absolutely obliterated. You can't live with people that are wanting to see you dead and are happy when your children are blown to pieces by their suicide bombers, and they smear the blood of your children upon their faces in joy and elation, and even years later they're getting paid by the actual government for these crimes is just insanity. It's got to stop. We can't entertain it at all. You can't get peace with that. You've just got to annihilate it. But I don't believe in war. I don't believe in annihilating things through violence and stuff like that. We've got to annihilate the spiritual source of this problem. The spiritual source of this problem are the lies that we inherited from the religions, and the only thing that can set us free from those lies are the truth. Od Yosef Chai and Ein Od Milvador. There is nothing but YHWH. Okay, so these are the ultimate truth, but we've got to see beyond ourselves, see beyond our suffering to that unity that is hidden beyond. And with that, I will say, Shalom, please subscribe.